Well, gang, welcome back to Late Night Conspiracies, everybody. Let's jump right into it. We're gonna get deep into this one, and yes, you're gonna get some tonight. We got a whole lot of conspiracies for days. If you're new here, you do not have to like the video, you do not have to subscribe, none of that, but feel free to share this. Shout out to Quanta. Let's jump right into it, because the conspiracies that we got tonight, oh man, get ready for this one. Roll it. Yeah, look at these twats out here.
For decades, Area 51 has been the epicenter of conspiracy theories, whispered secrets, and government denial. But what happens when new evidence emerges?
So you get inside this thing, and it's designed for something that's much smaller than a human being.
Yeah, you can't really stand up till you get to the very center of it.
And what do you think this was designed for?
I'd say something close to half my height.
Wow.
Damn.
So these little 3-foot tallish creatures.
Evidence that was supposedly hidden from us. On Joe Rogan's
I guess it's safe to say the 3-foot tall alien are gonna be easily pettable. Maybe we're gonna be able to pet them like a good old chihuahua. But what about the 9 feet tall alien that we hear about? Yeah, I don't, yeah, they're probably, hopefully they're not gonna pet us, because if they decide to pet us, it's over.
podcast, Bob Lazar, the man who put Area 51 on the map, discusses newly declassified photos that could change everything we think we know.
Okay.
My gosh.
Yeah, we've seen this a million times.
The wind's 120 knots from the west.
Are they proof of extraterrestrial technology, or is there a more grounded explanation? Let's take a deep dive into the mystery.
Now notice the eyes are different, nose are different, but they do have 5 fingers, 5 toes, 2.
Yeah, this is one of those famous pictures, right? Is this real, man? You know what I mean? It's one of those. This one is believable. You know, this is believable, but holy smokes, it ain't no dang jokers, guys. What are your thoughts on this one? Yeah, look at that twat right there.
2 eyes.
2 eyes.
Before
yeah,
we even
like
get into
us.
the photos and Bob Lazar's claims, you really need to understand why Area 51 has been such a magnet for secrecy and speculation in the first place. The shocking truth about Area 51. Area 51 isn't just a military base, it's a symbol of mystery.
Insectoid alien J-Rod said that he had actually come from our future.
Tucked away in the Nevada desert, its very existence was denied by the US government until 2013, despite being one of the worst kept secrets in history.
Yeah, basically the government lies, essentially. Yeah, that's where we are. We demand answers! We demand answers! The public demand answers! It's crazy for how long they kept it hidden, and they were like, nah man, Area 51 do not exist. It does not exist. But then it's like, you know, the cat is out of the bag. Once the cat was out of the bag, they were like, yeah guys, Area 51 exists.
Can't, it's so cold. Here we go.
It was so cold, bro.
The facility is officially a testing ground for advanced aircraft, but for many, it represents something far more elusive. Proof that the government is hiding something about extraterrestrial life. The rumors really took off in the 1950s when locals and military personnel started reporting strange lights and unidentified flying objects in the skies above the base. The official explanation? Experimental aircraft.
Yeah.
And to be fair,
and it has also been said, right, so by some whistleblowers, whether you're gonna believe it or not, that's up to you. And it's just like a he said, she said kind of situation. Nobody knows whether this is real or not, but it's interesting, right? Because some whistleblowers did say that initially, yes, Area 51 was that area where they were experimenting on aliens crafts and aliens and the crafts, the UFOs. But once it got popular, once it got that notoriety, that's when they shifted from Area 51 to Area 52, basically calling it Area 52. So basically another facility. Now Area 51 it's basically gets the attention, but that's not where things like this go down. That's kind of like what the whistleblower said a while back. Is it true? Is it not? I mean, nobody knows.
Area 51 has been home to some of the most cutting-edge aviation projects, from the U-2 spy plane to the stealth fighter. But that didn't stop the speculation. After all, why would a simple aircraft testing site require such extreme levels of secrecy? One of the biggest accelerators of Area 51's mythos was the Cold War. The U.S. was locked in a technological arms race with the Soviet Union, and military advancements were classified at the highest levels. Spy planes, surveillance tech, and next-generation aircraft were all being developed in the shadows. But secrecy has a way of fueling curiosity, and the more the government denied, the more people suspected they weren't telling the whole truth. Then came the testimonies.
It's crazy, right? Because if that picture is real,
the more people
if this picture is real, it's and of course you gotta also take in accounts of the whistleblowers and people in the know, the high-ranking government officials that came out that essentially broke the bro code and told us about, like, yeah, the aliens are real, we're not alone, this and that, right? We are not alone. All of them basically said that, yeah, like most of them, bro, like they have similar properties like us. Essentially 2 hands, you know, maybe some of them got 3 fingers. I mean, 3 fingers, that's kind of crazy. In other words, you're gonna get some tonight, pause. But like, yeah, 2 eyes, 2 ears, nose, mouth, basically a brain, all that, right? So essentially, they have similar properties. It's just like, yeah, their skin color may be different, maybe their brain would be larger, maybe they would be a little bit more chubbier, maybe not, maybe taller, maybe thinner, this and that. Maybe instead of having 5 fingers, they got 3 fingers. And it's also been said by one of the Canadian defense minister, who is no longer with us now. He did say before he passed away that there's also one of those alien kinds that is basically very much similar like us. It's like, it's very, very hard to say, well, yeah, who is who at that point, right? So I mean, damn, if real, I'm just saying, if real, bro, crazy.
Suspected they weren't telling the whole truth. Then came the testimonies, whistleblowers, former employees, and even high-ranking officials who hinted that Area 51 wasn't just about human technology. Some claimed to have seen UFOs up close, while others alleged that the government was reverse engineering alien spacecraft in underground labs. Whether fact or fiction, these stories became the foundation of modern UFO lore. Bob Lazar played a huge role in this narrative, but we'll get to him in a moment. First, let's talk about the government's...
We gotta get to Bobsy tonight, man. We gotta get to the homie Bobby out here, yo. Honestly, Bob Lazar is by far one of the best whistleblower, or one of the most trustworthy, one of the most credible whistleblower to date. A lot of people believe him, but what if, man, he's also a government psyop? You never know, right? It's just one of those things, but I guess Bob Lazar is somebody that most majority believes in. But what if, man, what if that turns out, oh man, holy smokes, it ain't no darn jokers. But
response: for years, the military and intelligence agencies brushed off the rumors, calling them conspiracy theories. Yet, ironically, their tight-lipped approach only made things worse. Even when documents were declassified, they often raised more questions than answers.
For sure.
In 2019, things took an even stranger turn when a viral Facebook event, Storm Area...
Yo, I remember this one. We're gonna clap alien cheeks. We're gonna run faster than their bullets. Save it. Save ET from the government. Oh, that's cute right there. That's
19,
cute.
Things took an even stranger turn when a viral Facebook event, Storm Area 51, gathered millions of responses. It started as a joke, but quickly became a pop culture phenomenon, with people seriously considering rushing the gates in search of extraterrestrial secrets. The government's swift response, including warnings that deadly force could be used, only reinforced the idea that there was something there worth protecting. But all the secrecy and speculation surrounding Area 51 wouldn't have reached the mainstream without one man, Bob Lazar. His claims weren't just wild theories, they were detailed, technical, and specific. And whether you believe him or not, you must first learn more about who Bob Lazar is to fully comprehend what's going on now.
This is why people keep seeing flying saucers, because it's ours and we've just been testing it probably for all these years.
The untold story about Bob Lazar that will surprise you.
Exactly what's going on up there?
Well, there's several, actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs that are out there of extraterrestrial origin.
In 1989...
And that was his very first come up, right? Or basically coming out and talking or telling us essentially that, allegedly, that truth. Did not show his face, but later on he showed his face, right? So this was one of, look at that, man, 1989, guys, damn. Yo, by 2029, it would be like, what, 40 years? Oh shit, oh shit. Crazy, man. Almost 40 years, huh? And Storm Area 51 was like, what, 5 years ago? Shit, man. Or 6 years ago? Crazy, bro.
There's flying discs that are out there of extraterrestrial origin.
In 1989, Bob Lazar went public with a story that sounded straight out of science fiction. He claimed to have worked at a top-secret facility near Area 51 called S4, where he was assigned to reverse engineer alien technology. According to him, the U.S. government wasn't just aware of extraterrestrial spacecraft, they had possession of several of them. Unlike most UFO whistleblowers, Lazar came armed with a technical background. He spoke about propulsion systems that defied physics, particularly a gravity-based engine powered by element 115.
But it's 115. They will continue to take or experiment and try and make 115 at different isotopes, and I'm sure eventually they'll come up with a stable version.
A then unknown substance that he claimed was the key to anti-gravity travel. At the time, mainstream science dismissed the idea of such an element existing, but years later, Moscovium, element 115, was officially synthesized, fueling speculation that maybe Lazar wasn't making it all up.
But here's the thing, right? This was crazy. Oh, not even denying that. The fact that later on it became a real thing. But what if this 115 thing that's now on the periodic table is basically a different element in comparison to the real, or the so-called 115 back in those days, right? Which is of course linked with anti-gravity, UFOs, aliens, extraterrestrial fuel, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, or refer to as. Oh, and perhaps this is just something different. Basically, we found something different and we're like, okay, we gotta throw it on the periodic table. Quick, think something different. Come up with 115. You know, maybe it's just that, or perhaps it's actually the same thing that Lazar was talking about, man.
His story didn't just sound compelling, it was disturbingly detailed. He described how these spacecraft had no conventional wiring, no visible propulsion, and no seams or rivets. He also mentioned hand scanners used for employee access at S4, devices that were unheard of at the time, but later turned out to be real technology used by military contractors.
Yeah, that was wild, right? Because he actually did... essentially, he was the young Nostradamus for that time. So, stuff that he said, I mean, there are a whole lot of consistencies with his accounts, stuff like that. I mean, you know, fingerprints, scanners, different kind of scanners that you would never think we would have, but we did, and we do. So, crazy, that came true.
Of course, his claims weren't without controversy. Almost immediately, efforts were made to discredit him. His supposed education records at MIT and Caltech were wiped clean, and his employment history at Los Alamos National Laboratory, where he claimed to have worked, was nowhere to be found. Some took this as proof that he was lying, while others saw it as evidence of a government cover-up. But whether you believe Lazar or not, one thing is undeniable. He single-handedly reshaped the conversation about UFOs and Area 51. Before his interview with investigative journalist George Knapp, Area 51 was barely a blip on the radar of mainstream media. Afterward, it became synonymous with secret government projects and extraterrestrial technology. Lazar didn't try to cash in on his story. In fact, he largely withdrew from the public eye for years, refusing interviews and avoiding attention.
Flying saucers, flying discs that are out there of extraterrestrial origin.
If he were just another conspiracy theorist seeking fame, why disappear?
Yeah.
Instead, he quietly built a scientific supply business,
unless he's a psyop, a government control plant, or he's speaking the truth. And many people are leaning towards, myself included, that he's speaking the truth. What are your thoughts on him? 1 in the comments if you believe he's legit. 2 in the comments if you are 50-50 about it. 3 in the comments if you think, nah, bro, like, government psyop, lies, this and that. We demand answers, lie. I mean, we surely do demand answers. I mean, even I demand answers, but let me know where you are at with it. But just an interesting thought here, guys. Think about it this way, right? Bob Lazar, George Knapp. When they first broke the story, Bob Lazar came to George Knapp. They broke the story. They were both young. Now, both of them are actually old. Point is, time flies so quick. And yeah, like almost 40 years, and we still don't have a full disclosure. Some would say, some are saying disclosure has started, and it does feel that way. I'll agree with that. But still, we haven't gotten full disclosure. That's crazy, man. These 2 dudes came out almost 40 years ago, and we still don't have it. That's insane to me. That is insane to me.
Resurfacing decades later in Joe Rogan's now famous podcast episode. And that's where things get even more interesting. Because during that conversation, Lazar not only stood by his original claims, he also hinted that new information, including declassified photos, could help prove his story right. Was he finally getting the validation he had waited for? Or was this just another layer of mystery in an already strange saga? To find out, we have to look at Joe Rogan's role in bringing these revelations to the masses. Joe Rogan's shocking statements in his podcast. Joe Rogan has built his podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, into a powerhouse of open-ended discussions, often featuring guests with mind-bending stories. From scientists and historians to conspiracy theorists and whistleblowers, Rogan thrives on deep conversations that challenge mainstream narratives. But when he invited Bob Lazar onto his show in 2019, even he seemed taken aback by what unfolded. Unlike a typical interview with a UFO enthusiast, this conversation was different. Lazar didn't come across as someone desperately trying to convince people of his story. If anything, he seemed reluctant, almost exhausted from decades of skepticism and scrutiny. His responses were measured, technical, and at times frustratingly cautious, far from the wild, exaggerated claims one might expect from a hoaxer.
Yeah.
One of the key moments in the interview was when Lazar described how the craft he worked on supposedly manipulated gravity itself. He explained that it didn't operate like any conventional aircraft, but rather created its own gravitational field, bending space-time around it. Rogan, known for pushing his guests to elaborate, kept digging deeper, trying to make sense of the science behind it. The more Lazar explained, the more it seemed to intrigue Rogan rather than set off any alarms of dishonesty. But perhaps the most significant part of the conversation wasn't just Lazar's claims, it was the fact that some of the things he had described in the late 80s were now being talked about in official government reports. Things he had described in the late 80s.
Look at that phone, bro. Insane, man. Crazy. We used to have that back in the days. Damn, man. Damn.
80s were now being talked about in official government reports. Rogan, who often approaches conspiracy theories with a mix of skepticism and curiosity, pointed out that the Pentagon had recently declassified documents confirming the existence of UFOs, or UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, as they now call them. Could this mean Lazar had been telling the truth all along? Adding another layer to the mystery, Lazar spoke about declassified photos and new evidence that seemed to align with his past claims. He wasn't the one revealing them, but he acknowledged their importance, suggesting they could further validate what he had been saying for years. Rogan, clearly intrigued, pressed him for details, but Lazar remained cautious, emphasizing that he had already said everything he could say.
You were involved in what kind of work?
Nuclear weapon development, physics. I mean, they do everything there.
The episode quickly became one of Rogan's most watched interviews, sparking renewed debate about Area 51, secret government projects, and whether extraterrestrial technology had truly been recovered. It wasn't just the usual UFO enthusiasts tuning in. Scientists, skeptics, and mainstream audiences were now paying attention. But what exactly were these declassified photos? And did they provide undeniable proof? Or were they just another piece of an ever-growing puzzle? To answer that, we need to take a closer look at what was actually revealed. Unveiling the declassified photos. In recent years, the U.S. government has declassified numerous documents and photographs related to its clandestine operations, including those at Area 51. These releases, often obtained through Freedom of Information Act FOIA requests, offer a rare glimpse into the activities conducted at this secretive base.
I mean, yeah, like they release these photos of the so-called aircrafts that they were working on, but nobody cares about that, man. Release the photos for the UFOs and the aliens. That's what we care about. That's what we want. That's what the public is demanding right now. The taxpayer demands that. Either lower the taxes or cut the taxes or give us the truth, or do both. Tell us the truth and also cut the taxes. Yeah, man, it's a highway robbery, man, daytime robbery, bro. Like, crazy, man. Like, holy, man. We demand answers. We demand answers, bro.
Base. One notable release includes aerial images of the Groom Lake facility, showcasing its expansive runways, hangars, and testing areas. These photos, once classified, now provide the public with a clearer view of the base's infrastructure. While they don't confirm the existence of extraterrestrial technology, they do highlight the advanced aerospace projects undertaken there. Additionally, documents detailing the development of aircraft like the U-2 spy plane and the A-12OXC ART have been made public. These records illustrate the cutting-edge research and development that took place at Area 51 during the Cold War era. The innovative designs and technologies employed in these projects were decades ahead of their time, often leading to public sightings of unidentified flying objects, which were, in reality, test flights of these secret aircraft. While these declassified materials don't provide evidence of alien spacecraft, they do offer context for the numerous UFO sightings reported over the years.
And it wouldn't shock me at all that all of these technologies or these aircrafts that they made, I'm certain, like I heard this somewhere too, that whistleblowers were saying the aircrafts, the spy planes, and you know, the SR-71, and you know, these so-called aircrafts, the spy planes, yeah, there's another term to describe it. It's not coming up in my mind right now. But all of these aircrafts essentially took technology from UFOs, and it was basically reverse engineered tech too, right? Yeah, so I would not be shocked if that's real as well.
Advanced nature of the aircraft tested at Area 51, combined with the secrecy surrounding them, contributed to the aura of mystery that continues to captivate the public's imagination. When the newly declassified images surfaced, they immediately caught the attention of both UFO enthusiasts and skeptics. The photos, released through official government channels and Freedom of Information Act (FOIA) requests, depict high-altitude aerial shots of
Yeah, I don't care about that. Give us the truth. We demand real photos of the UFOs and the aliens.
Previously restricted sections of Area 51 and S4, as well as structural layouts that had never been seen by the public before. Some images show strange, unidentified objects, ones that don't seem to match any known aircraft. For those who have followed the Area 51 mystery for years, these photos were a breakthrough. One of the most notable aspects was that some of the facilities described by Lazar decades ago, such as underground hangars embedded into the side of a mountain, appear to align with what the declassified images reveal. This doesn't necessarily confirm his claims, but it does add credibility to the idea that there were parts of the base that were deliberately hidden from public knowledge.
Yeah,
however, not everyone is
and I mean, to play the devil's advocate real quick, or to play in their favor, I mean, it makes sense. Like, if they were, you know, making technology or developing these aircrafts, they were doing it so they can compete with other countries, primarily China, Russia, right? So they surely did not want their formula, their recipe, or you know, the recipe. They don't want their recipe leaking out. They don't want the enemy or the other countries, adversaries, to find out and then reverse engineer that, and therefore your technology that you have been working on for years, decades, becomes obsolete. Yeah, okay, makes sense, right? But of course, it was deeper than that. Pause. No diddy though. Whatever they were working on at Area 51 and are working on, it's deeper than just that. Although I feel like that nowadays, it's probably true. They're probably just working on, like, you know, projects, aircrafts, stealth technologies. But back in the days, I guess they were really working on some UFO reverse engineer crap too.
Convinced, skeptic.
But then later on moved on to like different facilities, so the so-called Area 52 now.
Argue that while the photos are intriguing, they don't necessarily prove anything related to alien technology. Many believe that what's being seen are classified military aircraft and experimental prototypes, similar to how the U-2 spy plane was once mistaken for a UFO during the Cold War. In other words, just because something looks unusual doesn't mean it's extraterrestrial. That said, there are details that can't be easily explained. Some of the unidentified objects captured in these images lack conventional propulsion systems, meaning no visible wings, exhaust trails, or rotors. Features typically present in even the most advanced military aircraft. This aligns eerily well with Lazar's descriptions of the crafts he allegedly worked on at S4, which he claimed operated using a form of gravity propulsion rather than jet or rocket engines. Even more curious is that some of the structures in the photos appear to have been heavily modified or removed in later satellite images. Some theorists suggest this could be an attempt to conceal something that was briefly exposed when the images...
Wouldn't be shocked if that guy was an alien, you know what I'm saying? Just joking, man, just joking.
These were first released. The question is, what was so important that it had to be covered up? Adding to the intrigue, some documents that accompanied the photos contained heavily redacted sections, fueling speculation about what information was still being withheld. If these were just ordinary military installations, why would entire paragraphs be blacked out?
Exactly.
What was so sensitive that it had to remain classified even after these images were made public?
Did you see this video, by the way? click on this video on the screen and I'll see you right there, because this UFO video was recently released, and maybe we'll make a part 2 of this video later on. Check this